Alright, this is for my Amara sniper build. We're going to be going over this. This is an M10 endgame Borderlands 3 build. The main weapon I'm going to be using is the unseen threat. Now as far as the skill tree goes, I'm fully maxed out in Mystical Assault, as well as Fist of the Elements. So I am working with 2 capstones here. Definitely not using Illuminated Fist because melee damage in its current state is only good for replenishing ammo with a cop purse. And that's pretty much it. What I like to do is max out in Anima. Now Anima does give you a lot of additional damage in the form of your status effect. So we're looking to max that as much as possible. With this build, you're gonna have to be careful with Anima because I use the Nimbus comm, really with any comm, but you want to try to avoid any elemental contacts because it can put you in fight for your life relatively quickly. 1 point in steady hands and then 1 point in infusion. Basically to get us all the way down to forceful expression. I do put all 5 points into Tempest, because again we're looking at increased damage. In this instance it's elemental and shock. So anything that increases our damage, we're going to look to max that out as much as possible. And then 5 points into Wildfire. Again, the spread chance is what we're looking at there. Obviously Dread because of the gun damage. Like someone said before in the forums, free damage. They don't like to use free damage. Indiscriminate, obviously, because we're looking at ricocheting our shots. That will help in with ties that bind and basically eliminating massive amounts of enemies with one shot. Increase in mag size, that helps, especially when we're using the unseen threat, which has a small magazine size. So you don't want to, eliminate reloading as much as possible. And 1 point into Catharsis. I like to throw it in there because I think it actually helps with damage. And 1 point into Sustainment, because the damage that we're doing, and we're using a Soul Sap. Sustainment is based on the damage dealt, and considering we're dealing millions of points of damage, we only need 1 point in there to make it effective. And then we have 1 point, well actually 2 points from the common conflux. So that's, I don't put any points in there unless it's with the comm. And then of course we're going to do forceful expression, because again, bonus elemental damage. Yeah, we want that. As far as Brawl, we only put 3 points into personal space. Again, it's free damage, and we're definitely going to want that. I do have some comms that put, especially with my Phaserker, that could put points into here, into Clarity, and that's best used for like taking down Wotan or something like that, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then we're going to move on to the blue tree. So in Mystical Assault, we want to do as max out do harm. So we're looking at maxing out those rush stacks. 1 point into each of those, into those other ones, just because do harm gets you 5.9% action skill damage per stack, so that's why we want to max that out. Reload speed, we're not going to really need that. And then Violent Tapestry, we only need 1 point into here to get the full effectiveness of that skill, especially when dealing with do harm. What happened was I was doing audio in-game and it didn't catch, so I'm doing audio now instead. And I guess I wanted to hover on Violent Tapestry for quite a while. I have no idea what I was talking about there. But we're going to get down into the other ones here in just a minute. If I would stop talking in-game and come down. There we go. So now we want to max out Transcend. Again, critical hit damage. Being a sniper build, this is what we're going to be focusing on. So anything that increases our critical hit damage is going to be a priority. So we're going to max that out. Then we slide over to Restless. We want to get our cooldown as low as possible, so we have almost instantaneous access to that action skill activator. Nothing in from rest, but if we get another level cap increase, might throw some in there. Just to increase that fire rate, send those projectiles to our enemies faster, as well as putting some points into Alacrity. But in all honesty, I might go down the Brawl tree instead. Yeah, so in the Guardian rank, I was talking about too angry to die, so we don't need the reload speed thanks to the too angry to die in your fight for lifetime, which is extended pretty far beyond what you would get without it, and that allows us to not have a need for reload speed, as long as you're careful. Laid Bear, obviously, we want to max that out. And again, anything that increases our damage is what we're looking to max out. Same with Wrath. Well, actually, I don't know if I have it fully met. I think I do. Remnant, we want 1 point in here. This shoots out that orb after you're killing people, and we only need 1 point to make it effective. I've seen damage close to 1 billion. And in Awakening, we want to increase the effectiveness of our rush stacks, so maxing that out will help and increase our overall damage. Avatar, obviously you want this because it gives you a free revive from Fight for Your Life, or not a Fight for Your Life, but your action skill. It gives you an additional action skill with no cooldown. You do have to let your action skill completely cool down before you can use it again, but it is highly effective. And it comes in handy, definitely. Like like I said, I use Soul Sap and ties that bind. You know, that's the main thing here for effective crowd control. And in Soulfire, I find that Soulfire is better than the Shock variant when dealing with Remnant. We do not have access to Blight Tiger, not yet. Maybe with an increase in the level cap, we'll get access to that. But that's why I use Soulfire. Now, as far as Guardian rank, mine is fairly high, but I've put in, jeez, I don't know, over 1,000 hours into this game. But you don't need that many points to get all the way down in this side of the Guardian rank tree here. But we're looking at Too Angry to Die, Armageddon, and Hollow Point as our main focus of getting down in that tree. So if you have access to those, that's what we're looking for. And then there are other important ones in there, but you know, like Overkill. But getting down to those other three at the bottom will just get you access to all of those. And that's what I was going over here, so you definitely want to max that out there. Now, as far as your bonus stats, my focus is always first on gun damage, reload speed, recoil reduction. I stay away from melee damage and vehicle damage because they're basically useless at this point. So those are the last on my list to get filled in. Hunter, I try to max out everything there as much as possible. Luck was one of the first things I maxed out, just to give you that better loot, any type of better loot drop chance. It's always an added bonus. But the new elemental damage, that's one you want to get maxed out as quickly as possible. So all these, you know, even though it's just right around 15%, they do help. The game is definitely playable without Guardian ranks, but it's just more fun to play with them. Now, as far as Mayhem mode, I'm in level 10, and the modifiers I use are right here. You can see Loot Explosion is the easy modifier, self-explanatory, but the one that we really want to focus on is Holy Crit, because it gives us that 25% increase in critical hit damage. Now, the non-critical hit damage is reduced by 50%, and that only comes into play sometimes, and you'll see in this playthrough, like when you hit up against Nogs, since their crit point is on their back, it can sometimes be hard to get to them. So it may take a little longer to kill enemies like that. But I find that these 4 modifiers work very well together and cause the least amount of interference in your gameplay. Chain gang, you know, and mob mentality, you really don't notice them too much. Obviously, you know, you can see it because there's visual effects that accompany those modifiers, but the Holy Crit is the most important one. So if you find other ones that you like for those other 3, go ahead and get those. Now, the Unseen Threat is the best sniper in the game. I also use the Clairvoyance. This one happens to be a masher version, with plus 21% critical hit damage. So that's important. Anything that increases critical hit damage is always a plus. I just like the feel of the Jakob's weapons compared to others. And you can see the dastardly threat here does plus 33% critical hit damage. Now the range in critical hit damage and damage output on the dastardly, or the unseen threat, and the clairvoyance ranges significantly, so just try to find something that has the highest. 33% on the unseen threat is the highest critical hit damage you can get, as well as 21% on the clairvoyance is the highest you can get on that one. I like the masher version for the clairvoyance because it has an increase in overall damage, even though it has a reduction in fire rate. I find that the 4 pellets is more effective than one with a higher fire rate but lower damage. Sometimes I like to throw in the speed, or the Hellwalker, because it's fun to use and it's effective for general playthrough. Definitely not for mob killing, but that's where the yellow key comes into play. Mob killing right there. Or not mob killing, but basically any type of killing. So if you find yourself in a pinch, it's good to use that one. In addition to, well, I do like to use the Caisson. That's my favorite SMG, for obvious reasons. It has the highest damage output, and it's just a beast of a weapon in this game. I'm curious to see what it's going to be like once the patch hits. We get all those changes in damage numbers, but anyway, moving on. Now I use a front loader. Mainly because it gives you that 50% under 50% health, which is what I'm looking for the U-Rad, the unhealthy rad. Grenades I just use for their action skill end anointments, just to increase our overall damage, because grenades are fairly ineffective at this point. I use a Snowdrift Deathless for most of my gameplay, although I do change to the Pearl that you get from Claptrap for fights with Wotan. But all the weapons I look to get have that unhealthy rad anointment. It just helps to increase our overall damage. And this is the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge that I use. And if I'm fighting Wotan, I will switch out to that and then to an Old God Shield. With an action skill end, just to help increase that damage. When you're fighting somebody like Wotan, it's important. You don't want to have any reduction in health just because for survivability when you're fighting Wotan. Now it can be done with this current setup, but it is definitely tricky. I've done the solo the takedown with this setup, including Wotan. But true takedown is a little bit more tricky, just because the amount of enemies involved and the increase in health on the Valkyries and Wotan. So I like to switch out of that if I'm doing a true takedown. Well, and that's what I was talking about there, so that's for your when you're going up against Wotan. But the comm I use, most importantly, right now is the Nimbus. Yeah, no phaserker, no driver, no breaker, but the Nimbus. But the one thing you want to look out for is that cloud damage. So when you phase grasp an enemy, it creates a cloud. Just don't go through the cloud. Wait for it to disperse or go around it, because if you go through that cloud with the Nimbus or any other comm, you know, when you're facing elemental damage, you want to try to limit that as much as possible because of Anima. Anima will kill you or put you in fight for life very quickly, especially with the Nimbus. So just look out for that, and you're gonna have to adjust your playstyle to avoid those clouds. Just be on the lookout for that cloud and make sure you avoid it. And then we're gonna get into some playthrough here so you can see what it's like to play with this build. And we're going to have some fun and take you all the way through Trant in this particular run. Now the focus has to be on crit shots. So I try to hip fire and hit those crit shots, no matter the distance. So, you know, some of those guys that are really far away, I'll use the scope, or if I phase grasp them sometimes, if they're too far away, I'll use the scope just to make sure I hit that crit spot. You can see the effectiveness of everything working together and how quickly it kills. So here's Tyrone. Take him out. His little immunity phase there is annoying, but he goes down relatively easy. You can see that there's that orb, 8 million. It's kind of low. It's on a low end too. But they're the Nogs, you gotta hit them, and their crit spot is in the back. So that's one of the things you've gotta look for is the crit spots on all enemy types. Know where they are. Using a sniper build in Borderlands 3 a lot more effective and a lot more fun, especially when you're using the holy crit, because any body shots are going to count for 50% less than what they would normally do. But it's relatively easy to hit crit shots, as you can see. Avoid the cloud. Crit shots, and here we go. Okay. Hits out everybody. Avoid the cloud. Gonna go collect those, and then we're gonna run up here. I like using the snowdrift, just because of this. Helps you get through any slow parts relatively quickly, and for speed runs, it's very effective. You can see, look at that one-shotting all those guys.
Nothing to it.
Without even using phase grasp, you can kill multiple enemies because of the ricocheting bullets and a nice little orb that seeks out players or enemies and kills them. Now the heavies are kind of tricky because their crit spot is that little thing on the back. So sometimes it can be hard to hit. So you just gotta learn the angles and where to get them. So there, and then that guy got in my way. But I eventually got it. These repulsor shield guys, you don't hit that shield because it'll just send those bullets back to you. You just gotta hit him in the head. There we go, see who's far away, so I zoomed in. And here's a little Nog. Get around him, get his crit spot. There we go. And takes out that heavy with him, which is nice. You can see I do slight movements even if I'm standing still. Because if you move back and forth a little bit, it's harder for your enemies to hit you. This little guy, he ran up there. Luckily this guy jumped down. Or else I might have died there. So those are things you gotta look out for when you're using this type of build, is you don't want to get caught and fight for your life with no enemies around. So it's very important to look out for that cloud. Yeah, like 2 shots from the sniper and that heavy is gone. Sometimes it only takes 1 shot, but it just depends if you have your stacks built up. See, the fight for your life is so long because with the help of the guardian range, that when I go into fight for your life, if there's enemies around, I do not have any concern about dying. Unless there's there have been some instances where enemies run behind cover and I'm in fight for your life and I can't get to them in time. But if you die in that situation, you die. I mean, you're just losing a little bit of money, so it doesn't really matter too much. Unless you're trying to 1 life. Now if you're looking for 1 life, this is not a build you want to use. Because, like that right there, so you go in the fight for your life, and if there's no other enemies around, little nogs, they're like tiny little tanks, that's what they are. Refill some ammo, and we're gonna go over here and take care of these guys. I switched to the caisson just to show that it is extremely effective for crowd killing as well. Now with my particular comment, does have an increased hit damage for all weapons, so your base damage is increased. I think it's 28%. But you can see the Nimbus, ties that bind, everything working together is very effective for massive crowd control. And then here I start with the caisson, but I'll switch to the sniper just to show you that it is possible. And fairly quick too. With this guy, crit spots like right in front there, so it's relatively easy to get those. That's why I switched to the sniper.
Watch the throne.
One thing I like about sliding is you can reload while you're sliding. And it's pretty effective. Well, the first shot I missed the crit spot, so that's why I took a couple more shots to get him. If you hear any background noise, I have to set up my mic better. I don't think it does background noise elimination though, to be honest. So I apologize for any background noise. That's my air conditioner in my office. And you'll see here that even without ties that bind, the ricocheting bullets from the skill tree and from the unseen threat take care of crowds as well. Smaller crowds. And right there I couldn't quite get over the railing, so I just had to jump and hit him in the crit spot. Once you get good enough at hitting crit spots, you don't need to aim down sight. You can hit them relatively consistently the shooting, and I think Gearbox gives you generous hitboxes as far as the crit spots go. Now here I'm using the sniper because I want to hit a couple. I want to hit crit shots just to build up my stacks and the damage. So when I go face front, it just takes 1 to 2 shots from the yellow pink to take it down. So I'll switch to that. And in this case, it takes 2 shots. Probably just because I didn't hit him far enough away. So if I would have sent that first shot a little bit sooner, it would have only taken 1. But you can see he's dead pretty quick. And that's it there. That's what you got. Hope you enjoyed this build and have fun with it.